Hey, Rental Roundtable listeners, for episode number 71 of the Rental Roundtable. We've had on someone I've known for actually about 10 years, Jeff Van Doggen. He is the founder of Econo Rent in Canada. Previously, we both worked in the automotive space. We crossed paths together. He's a hugely successful career in the automotive sector. Started Econo Rent in the last 19 months, a lot of success in Canada. We talk about his journey getting there and how he was a renter and had a really bad renting experience similar to mine and ended up starting a rental company. And the biggest thing I learned from this is what makes Econo Rent different. And they were very clear about what they do and they don't do. And I think there's a lot of lessons for independent rental companies who have, trying to take their business to the next level. It's sort of counterintuitive thinking the way he talks about it, but he's obviously been very successful, and it's a really good lesson on how to focus and how to stay in your lane. So, really great episode with Jeff. He's a good friend, and I hope you guys enjoy listening to it. All right, everyone, welcome to the Rental Roundtable, episode number 71. We have on Jeff Van Doggen. He's the founder of Econo Rent. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kyle. It's great to see you again, and now in a new industry.
New industry, it's right. So we connected about 10 years ago, both from the automotive space. I was at Clutch, the vehicle subscription service, and you've been in the automotive industry way longer than I have. So it's interesting. Here we are 10 years later. We both have shifted from automotive to rental. So we'll talk a lot about that today. But Jeff, good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. Looking forward to the discussion.
So, Jeff, I always like to talk about people's background and story. So, there's sort of a split I've started to notice after now 71 of these episodes is there's people who grew up in the industry, their father, grandfather, 75-year-old business, they're taking over. And there's people like me and you who aren't from the industry and found this amazing industry called the equipment rental space and realize how great of a business it is. And we've sort of stumbled into this. And me and you are in that camp. So, Jeff, I'd love to hear about your story going even back 10, 20 years and how we got here today.
Sure. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. So I started, as you said, in automotive. My entire corporate career was in automotive, working for agencies like BBDO, servicing Daimler, Chrysler, kind of through all those mergers and
Yeah.
acquisitions. And then went on to a smaller startup at the time called Autodata, which was building transactional technology and data stores specifically for automotive. So if you think of automotive online shopping and the kind of pre-incept the digital retailing, how do I configure a vehicle online, compare vehicles online, all that kind of fun stuff. Autodata was at the forefront of that. I went through a couple of mergers and acquisitions with them, ultimately leading to an acquisition from JD Power. Moved on from there and went on to Holman Automotive, where I spent a lot of time in mobility and then spent a lot of time in M&A there as well. I really got my feet wet there. And then from there formed a company called Motor Minds. And the thesis behind Motor Minds is we're a quorum of 135 global executives who have all sat in the corner office of automotive manufacturers, have owned and operated dealerships, come from venture backgrounds, so private equity venture in automotive, come from mid-tier to large scale tech, so Intel Cap, Microsoft, and kind of form this consortium with the thought process that we would able to be very effective at understanding the status quo of the industry, where it needed to go, and then kind of putting those mindsets together to solve future state problems. And that's what we've effectively done for 15 years. So Motor Minds is still kind of running hard. I've stepped away from the day-to-day and act as the chairman now and have kind of vested my interests a little bit more from, I guess, I'll say traditional entrepreneurial into more of a serial entrepreneurial approach. So I've got investment interests in automotive dealerships, power sports dealerships. Now, of course, a rental company. I sit on the board for multiple private automotive technology companies. So I got my hands in a lot of pots. And to your point, it's funny because when I stumbled upon rental and I looked at it like, man, there's just massive opportunities in this industry. And you and I coming from automotive where, if you look at the digitization or, digital retail and digital merchandising, all these things that are kind of paramountly set up for rental and they're just not there yet. Right. And ironically, it's where I ran into you again. Right.
Yeah.
is I cold called you versus the other way around because, I kind of wanted to form this organization. I saw some disruption that was, I guess, I saw some things that from the outside in didn't seem logical to me. as
Mm.
an entrepreneur, and I wanted to, take a stab at solving some of those challenges, and here we are today.
Here we are today. So two guys from the automotive space 10 years later are back in rental. I wonder where 10 years from now we'll maybe be in a
Exactly.
different space. I hope not. It's been a fun space to be in. And I actually 2 weeks ago I was at a conference and I was sitting next to this guy. He was the founder of Vin Solutions. If you remember Vin
Of
Solutions,
course,
got
yeah,
car.
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
he was like, yeah, I sold my first company. He sold 4 companies. My first one, it was automotive space. I was asking him, I was like, oh, I know Vin Solutions. Cox Auto bought them, I
that's right.
believe, and Cox Automotive with the same deal with Clutch. So it was funny connecting with him. So what about the rental space when you first looked at it was so attractive? About 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, you looked at this, and
Yeah, it
from the
was
outside
3
in,
years
what
ago
was
when I first
attractive?
looked at it. We're, I guess, officially 19 months old now, um,
Okay,
from our formal launch. But where, like, for Motor Minds, we kind of conceived a lot of the early stage tech platforms for digital retailing, worked with a lot of partners in that ecosystem to make that a reality for several manufacturers, consulted and advised through the implementation of digital retailing platforms, and then ultimately supporting platforms like digital merchandising, for instance. And I just looked at rental as a person who's, one of those white collar guys who loves to operate equipment on the weekends. And I've always
yeah,
had, bigger estates, a lot of acreage, and have always rented equipment. And I've had incredible experiences and bad experiences. And I'll talk about specifically some of the challenges I was trying to solve. But the one that was at the forefront is that, man, I cannot believe I cannot book a piece of rental equipment online. Right?
yeah,
It just wasn't paramount. It's not like everybody wasn't doing it. There was some that were kind of dabbling into it. But so where I really wanted to go was a full digital experience, right? Like I
hmm
wanted to set up logistics centers, and now that was too grandiose to start at that point, because the industry I just don't think is quite ready yet. But I think you and I are seeing a lot of the challenges and opportunities and solving for them in similar ways, which is why it was a no brainer to partner with you guys at Quipli.
yeah. And I think that was sort of my experience, right? Starting quickly was the online renting. Why couldn't you rent online? Which is to open this whole gateway to all the other things you could build here. And just for our audience who doesn't know, Motor Minds, you guys are working with top tier OEMs, dealerships. I know Ron Fry and Famous Roads
Of
and some of
course.
those guys. And like,
Yep.
I don't want to over. You're being humble here. Motor Minds is like top dog in the automotive space. So you guys consult with a lot of the biggest organizations that make all of our cars that we drive every
That's
day.
right.
So
Yeah, and,
it's like,
pretty much 90% of the OEMs we have advisory consulting relationships with. Most of the tier three intermediaries, a lot of big tech companies servicing the automotive space, and again, venture and private equity as well.
so hugely successful in automotive, your career's been. So now you've switched to rental. Tell me about Econo Rent. You started that officially 19 months ago. Tell me about what your business does today, and sort of that how that last 2 years has been for you guys.
So I moved from. I'm a Canadian. Always most of my businesses were formerly always in the U.S. Really kind of came back home to retire. Was originally from the kind of Windsor, Detroit area, and that's where Motor Minds is headquartered today. Still, moved about 6.5 hours northeast. Bought a few hundred acres on the Canadian Shield, and came here to retire. And of course, with a few hundred acres, what was the first thing I was doing? Renting equipment.
There you go.
So, especially out in these, you know, I'll call it a rural geo, not tremendously distance from, I'll say, some metros. Like we're probably 45 minutes away from um, one of the nationals, if you will, at least the nationals in Canada. And to rent was painful. It was
Mm,
just this experience where I was paying significantly more for the logistics aspect than the actual rental itself. Probably like a lot of consumers have experienced a lot of hidden fees that I didn't understand as part of the rental process. I really didn't understand the indemnification or insurance or damage waiver process. And it was never properly explained to me. So, like, as a consumer that wasn't a large scale construction company, it's tough to rent equipment, right? And
mm,
so that was my
hmm
experience, right? And, I think from our previous discussions, similar to yours. So, entrepreneur, put a problem in front of an entrepreneur. What do? They try to solve it. And so, um, originally, like I said, I started conversations with you. I stood up a website. I wasn't going to have an actual physical retail location, had zero intent of doing that. I had 2 logistics yards planned out, a logistics model planned out. Much like a lot of the stuff that we've done in automotive was around logistics optimization, obviously. So understanding, you know, how to avoid empty backhauls, optimize the logistics, and really starting to figure out how to build out marketplaces for logistics to create economies of scales within the logistics framework. So I had zero intent of scaling up a storefront and found out pretty quickly the industry wasn't ready for that. At least out here in this geo, it
Hmm.
was not ready for that. It is a shaking hands, kissing babies business, regardless of how you swing it and look at it. And it is evolving, no doubt,
Hmm.
with people coming into the industry that are thinking about it differently. And it's been immensely refreshing from that perspective. So anyway, that's why I started. I saw these kind of core challenges, and I kind of go through a few more of them. But like, I mean, logistics was a top one, not just in the sense of the cost of delivery. They actually wouldn't deliver to me. So
Mm.
I am nowhere near a main road, and the equipment that most rental companies had that were anywhere near me were primarily focused on ease of delivery, right? So a lot of drop off
Mm.
bin trucks and that kind of stuff. You're not getting one of those trucks out here. You're not going to make it through some of the roads and through some of the topographical gravel inclines. Like, you need 4x4s out here, right? So it was like, I understood the problem, but extremely friction ridden as a consumer trying to rent in an environment, by the way, that I saw tremendous growth. So
Mm.
I'll kind of explain this to you. And I mean, it's a Canadian thing, but in Canada, we have the Muskokas and we have the Kawarthas, and they're these kind of beautiful, like a Colorado Springs type thing, where it's like beautiful lake country. People come to vacation from the GTA and from Ottawa. And that kind of trajectory was coming out to where I'd invest in real estate. And I saw that growth, and I saw more money and more infrastructure coming in. So I kind of launched this ahead of that curve, and it's paid
Mm.
dividends as a result.
Yeah, well, you're an entrepreneur, right? So I think it's funny. Both of us automotive guys come in and go, "Well, the rental experience isn't what it could be," right? And the digital part was part of it, but actually not being able to have deliveries that were handled well. And you also looked at the market. You saw where the growth was happening, right? We were able to see hundreds of rental companies all across the country, so we could see we sort of know what markets are growing.
Right.
Arizona is booming. We have a guy in upstate New York, Vermont. That area is actually booming right now, right? It sounded like you were able to get in the right spot at the right time. What? So you started to start this company, and you have all these issues. You see, you go, okay, you can't rent online. Delivery is not great. You go down the list. How does Econo Rent actually solve those? What makes you different than some of your competitors who weren't solving these the right way?
Yeah, and I do think, like, even in the last 2 years of meeting a lot of other rental companies through the ARA, which was a great organization that we're both part of. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I've met a tremendous number of great operators, right? Like I can look at
Hmm.
rental companies now and say, man, I wish I knew about them before. And,
Mm.
candidly, it's a different game. And I totally get this. It's a different game when you're one of the nationals versus,
Hmm.
I'm not going to say mom and pop shop, but a regional operation, like a really well run regional operation. I've met a lot of great rental companies like that now. So, these aren't criticisms, of course, of the entire industry. They're what I saw at the time and what I've solved for. So number one was that kind of um, rural challenge issue. So we are a rental company. We're not a logistics company. So I don't care about generating EBITDA on deliveries. In fact, I just
Mm.
aim to break even. That's my goal. I do that 2 ways. Number one is I've invested in the right type of equipment that I've yet to see any other rental company really invest in to deliver in these areas. When I say deliver in these areas, I'm delivering down snowmobile trails, ATV trails that double as cottage roads, right? I'll call them completely unmaintained roads. And, when you're delivering in these areas, you're saying to a consumer, is it a maintained road? Oh, yeah. No, it's maintained. I mean, every once a couple of years, somebody goes by with a tractor and a grader and they
Yeah.
grade the road. But you've got rocks on it like this, and you've
Yeah.
got clearance issues. So our delivery trucks all have all-terrain tires on them. 4x4 is a requirement. Our trailers are all custom made to custom lengths.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Reinforced axles, reinforced frames. I mean, they take a beating, right? So part of it was getting access to these areas and being able to delivering them, because I knew that was a barrier to competition because nobody else would. Two, it was, if I couldn't do it the cheapest, right? If my model, from what I can evaluate on an ongoing basis, our model is generally a third of the cost of delivery of our competition, which, call it 45 minutes to an hour away. Um, if a customer still is challenging that and saying, hey, I mean, geez, that's a lot of money to deliver a piece of equipment. Well, we've built out a little mini marketplace, right? So we've built a pool of AZ, DZ drivers, both either who are, kind of hot shot floats, if you will. So they do that for a living. They move equipment or supply for a living. And we put them into our little mini marketplace. We kind of like a Calendly like approach. The technology hasn't caught up with the idea yet, meaning like I haven't built out the technology, but that is my goal. Whereby I can understand and see when people have empty backhauls, and when I can plug them into a delivery or a pickup. And as a result, oftentimes they can do it even cheaper than me,
Mm.
because some money is better than no money, right? And
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
an opportunity for them. So building out that little mini marketplace has helped kind of keep costs down as well. The other thing I saw, and this was me personally, was equipment quality, right? So the company shall remain nameless, but there were a few of the big ones that I rented from, and I learned this as well through hiring consultants that were formerly from some of the big ones. That, I mean, my personal opinion is rental equipment is kept in fleets way too long, right? And I
Mm.
didn't want to. I mean, my customers care a lot about downtime, as do we in the rental business. But I mean,
Yeah.
customers specifically, downtime is money. So, like delivering a piece of equipment where the tracks are about to fall off, it just, I had bad experiences there. So we're very, very different and unique to really anybody I've talked to in the industry. We'll keep an excavator, a mini excavator, for $1,000 to $1,500, and that's our flip rate. Now,
Mm.
another lesson learned from the automotive industry and being, invested in automotive dealerships, power sports dealerships. I understand acquisition and disposition and doing that more at a global scale. So we're very effective at acquiring at the right cost, and then ultimately, disposing the unit at the right time and for optimal value. But what that does is it does a couple things. Number one, my maintenance costs, um, my reconditioning costs are so low because
Mm.
every piece of equipment remains under warranty, right? At that many hours, you don't have very many major repairs. I'm just getting through generally my second or third general maintenance, right? The other thing it does, and this has been a pleasant surprise to me, is you deliver a really great condition, well detailed piece of equipment to a consumer, and they bring it
Mm.
back up. And it was one of the biggest surprises, is that, okay, well, it's rental equipment. Is it going to get beat up all the time? And the percentage of our fleet that comes back in anything other than pristine condition is almost nil. Like, people, and they comment on it. They're
Mm.
comment, and this is a brand new piece of equipment, right? Like, we'll generally only stick with John Deere link belts for excavators. The skid steers are all John Deere. Like, we're working with top notch brands. Um, we're specking out the equipment where they're fully loaded, and they really are. They're not perceived as rental units like your standard rental, right? And they're really, really well cared for. So equipment quality was another thing that to effectively solve for. And like I said, like it my maintenance costs are very, very low in comparison to what my consultants tell me a traditional rental company might
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, does that last 5 minutes was gold, right? So we talked to a lot of independent rental companies, and they say, and I say, "What makes you different?" And it's service, and, but it's really hard, as being part of a lot of other companies, is like you really have to have some differentiation, and saying, like, "We're better," is not always the right differentiation. So you said three things. I want to kind of walk through that again. So first thing you said was delivery. So what you realized from your experience was that delivery experience sucked, right? It was they were not coming on to your house. They were not going on the main road. So what you did to solve that, again, you didn't say we're gonna do better delivery. You invested in that, right? You said we're gonna do it, but we're gonna invest in our trucks and making sure that they're prepared and our drivers are ready to go out on these roads, right? So that was a very strategic bet you made. And that first point was on delivery. You're gonna differentiate on delivery and you're gonna put real resources behind making that better. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
And so the second thing you said was you were the cost structure leader, right? Or in a sense that you made sure your delivery costs were in line, so that if people were price sensitive, which sometimes they are, you were able to win on price, right? And how did you make that happen, right? Because it's being the low cost leader is not necessarily a winning strategy, but keeping your cost and being efficient allows you to do a lot of other things, right? So how did you actually go about becoming super efficient on the delivery side from a cost perspective?
Yeah, in my market, it was actually really easy because I just calculated my actual cost to deliver units and
Mhm.
my cost per mile. Now that I've perfected it over the course of 19 months, is simply a third of what the retail cost is for all my competitors.
Mm,
And I do believe that's because now they might be managing in a different way. They might use more traditional FTEs, which I don't use, right? I tend to use a
mm,
lot more contractors and try to, create foundational entrepreneurs than
yep,
employees, right? So we don't have a ton of infrastructure costs. We've kept that really lean. Um, we like I said, like we'll use that mini marketplace to help keep costs down as well, right? And using other people's equipment and filling pipeline for them when they have downtime. I think it's a culmination of strategies that have really allowed us to do it. But candidly, Kyle, like it was one of the easiest things to solve for. And
mm,
going in, I thought it was going to be the most difficult. Right. And,
mm,
and so I'll get into some of the more challenging things that I saw that were bigger challenges to solve. But I think that one, honestly, I'd have to look at it and say from an outsider in, at least it related to my competition, I think there is a desire to maybe, um, you know, make money
mm,
as a logistics company and a rental company. Where one of the first things I saw is, hey, I'm a rental company. I'm not a logistics company. Like that. That's
mm,
not my value proposition, right? So
mm,
deliver exceptional quality equipment at a competitive price, service the heck out of customers, and don't charge for the things that are not your core business. Just break even
mm.
up. So that was
It's
my
the
mindset.
Yeah, well, that's the $1.50 Costco and hot dog and soda, right? Like,
That's it.
not saying you're running at a loss. It sounds like you're running break even on delivery, but you're like, we're not
That's
going
it.
to monetize this. We're a rental company and we're going to serve them
Yeah.
well. So you were great experience on delivery, got your cost in line as well. And the third thing you said was the equipment quality, right? So on that point, I think about the Malcolm Gladwell story about the New York subway system in the 1970s when they were all like damaged and graffiti, all this crime. They put new subway units in, they're brand new, clean, and all of a sudden all that it was cut in half because people realized that when you're around really nice things, when you're around in a nice car, if you have a nice Uber, you're more likely to take care of it, right? So you came in with really high quality equipment, and what happened was your customers also started taking care of it better. Subconsciously, they were like, "This is a nice rental company. This is a nice piece of equipment. Let me take better care of it." Versus the skid steer that's been run to the ground. It's got dents and it's old. And was that a surprise to you when you did that? Or did you
Huge,
expect that to happen?
huge surprise, right? Like that was a pleasant surprise. And I think that it's funny because like customers will react to that so seriously. Like it always starts with, man, like this doesn't look like a piece of rental, but the amount of times that that's been said
Mm,
is it's astounding. But I've had customers because this never happens in rental in my experience where you return a piece of equipment, it's got a bunch of nicks on it, you're like, they're not going to notice that. I'm not going to say anything. Yeah, right. I got customers saying, "Hey, man, I think I ding that. You let me know what I owe you for that. I think I ding that, right?" And it's just
yeah.
like you're looking at it
Mm,
like that's not a ding. Like I'm in a rental business, that's not a ding, right? But it was a huge pleasant surprise, and I think from a disposition perspective and a reconditioning
mhm,
cost perspective, like I said, they're essentially nil to me. Like they're non-measurable to me
mm,
because the combination of keeping the fleet new and young, kind of optimizing that acquisition disposition time frame, but more importantly, maintaining the equipment exquisitely. And I go to the lengths of, again, like, my expense on this is I actually hire auto detailers to do this. I outsource it,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
they're auto detailing these pieces of equipment, right? Like,
Oh,
it
interesting.
is delivered every time. Like, it is, and it's one of the things that I wanted to be part of my value proposition, and it's paid off really well for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been very clear about your value prop, and this is so refreshing to hear because uh, there's just certain some rental companies not even been on podcasts with people I talk to, and they're like, "What makes you different?" And they don't really have an answer. Like you've been very precise around these are the three things that we're going to win on. And the other thing is on the equipment quality side. How do you decide when to buy and sell? Because obviously, as automotive cars depreciate, equipment depreciates. Are you
Yeah.
buying exclusively new equipment, and how are you knowing when to sell? It sounds like you're selling earlier than a lot of rental companies would do it.
Yeah. So I'm doing two things. So one is, to your point, when I'm buying exclusively new. So I haven't gotten
Mm,
into used auctions. Again, this model works for me. What
mhm,
I do, however, that is different. So I think one of our other differentiators is we get into a lot of geospecific specialty equipment. So we do a ton of forestry. Like we're an FAE dealer, we're a Diamond Mowers dealer. So not only do we sell a lot of those units, but they are heavy in our rental fleet. All of our skid steers and excavators are retrofit with ballistic glass, right? Like, they are forestry ready because forestry is huge around here. We do a lot of
mm,
equipment that supports arborists, right? So our lifts aren't traditional lifts; they're spider lifts. So like, I've focused really heavily on not being in the race to the bottom units, to the point
mhm,
where for the first year I didn't have lifts. And to say that, did it hurt my business? I think so, right? I mean, like, lifts, telehandlers, you standard staples of a rental business. I have them now, but I haven't acquired them. So what I have
mm,
done is I've watched and I've built relationships with local contractors who have these units sit idle, right? And I said, hey, I mean, let's put them in the rental fleet. I'll build a revenue sharing model with you, and collecting a check every month is better than having the equipment sitting there costing you money if it's not utilized on a job site. When you need to, so long as it's not rented, you need to pull it off, use it for a job site. You're going to increase your utilization. You're going to increase your profitability on that unit. Everybody wins. So I think, like, I've done that. I've built a re-rent model as opposed to acquiring new,
mhm,
and that again is because I think, from my experience across automotive and power sports, I've I'm seasoned in the acquisition and disposition side. It's one of my passions, figuring out
mhm.
when to buy, when to sell. And to answer your question more specifically, like, I mean, it's like anything else. You watch the global markets, you watch the US versus Canadian currency, you figure out when's the optimal time to flip. Is the used market up or down? Where is it supply and demand? I mean, it's a formula, right? And every rental
Yeah.
company has their own. Um, Eventually, I think, depending on the geopolitical situation, the economy in Canada, all that stuff, we're likely going to have to hold a little bit longer. But I really like this model of keeping equipment in warranty and
Mm,
not having those high maintenance costs and
yeah.
replacement
I mean,
costs.
when you look at the total cost of ownership for all that, right, it adds up. And the whole idea, you get what you pay for. You're buying nice new equipment. You're having it detailed by automotive professionals, right? That all customers see that, right? At the end of the day, like you're going to build a great business that way. The other thing I think you had mentioned previously was you sometimes potentially rent with an operator involved, right? So is
Yeah.
that, tell me more about that.
So that was probably the biggest friction point with my shareholders, because they said, "Man, you cannot do that." So we termed a value proposition called Pro Powered Rentals,
Hmm.
and it is just that, it's rent with an operator. And I saw the opportunity because customers would come in and say, "Hey, can I rent that excavator? I want to do ABC, but you know what? Like, can you teach me how to use it? I'm really not
Mm,
comfortable using it." So two things came of that. And I think there are the, two other differentiators. Number one is we use a consultative renting model. So
mm,
we never just, I mean, if it's a contractor coming in and saying, hey, you know what, I need a telehandler for 3 weeks, blah, blah, I'm not going to question that the contractor needs a telehandler, right? But
Right.
with your traditional kind of residential consumer coming in saying, I need to rent a Mini X, or I need to rent a, a mini skid steer and blah, blah, the conversation always leads to, what are you working on? Right.
Hmm.
And I will say to you, Kyle, I'd say 70% of the time, no less, that customer is renting the wrong piece of equipment for that job. And the amount of
Mm.
time that
Mm.
I see Google reviews come in and saying, man, like, I mean, these guys were great because they actually advised me on what to rent. And a lot of the time I'm saving them money doing it. Right. So I'm
Mm.
not trying to upsell them. I'm really trying to, or we're really trying to add value in making sure that the customer gets the right piece of equipment. And we'll go to the lengths of actually visiting their job site. And, if they want to rent a breaker, and, the first question we ask, were you on shield? Like a breaker socket, like, so we'll actually go physically assess the job site. And if it's not the right thing for them, we'll either rent them something else or make a recommendation for a contract or whatever, right? We just want to make sure that we're always consultative in helping our customers select the right piece of equipment. Second to that is that theme of, okay, well, I've got the right piece of equipment, but can I operate a forestry mulcher?
Mm.
Probably not. Right. So what we do in that case is we remove the damage waiver, right? So we're taking, 10 to 15% off right away from the damage waiver to create some economies of scale for the consumer. We bill an operator out at cost. Again, I'm not in the business of services, I'm in the business of rental. So we bill an
Mm.
operator out at cost, and that's a really effective price point for the consumer. They rent the piece of equipment, it goes with an operator. And we find it's a really nice gap between, I want to rent the equipment, I'm a DIYer, a DIYer, or I need to go rent, or I need to go hire a contractor to do a full spectrum job for me. It fits in that middle gap really well. And the reason I was being challenged by my shareholders on that was, you're going to alienate your customers, your contractor customers. You're competing against them. Well,
Mm.
back to marketplace models, right? So there is an ever growing abundance of small to mid-sized contractors in this geo as a result of its growth. And they're not busy 100% of the time. So what I've done is I've built out that little marketplace to understand availability of contractors, and I will fill the gaps of their downtime by sending them consumer work and sending them with the equipment, right? So the
Mm.
customer wins, we win as a rental company, and we're increasing pipeline for our local contractors who are also our customers. So it's
Has
worked out really, really well for us.
has there been any pushback from the contractors? You mentioned your shareholders were concerned about that. Did that actually play out in reality?
Not at all, zero. It's been
Because
it's been immensely well adopted because, again, I mean, we're driving pipeline for them, right? They're not sitting around doing nothing, and so
yeah,
it's perfect.
and you guys also aren't really taking a cut. It sounds like you're sort of taking their
Nothing.
rate, passing it. Yeah, so that's it.
That's it.
That's another interesting thing is because you guys have been very just talking to you now, right? I'm not surprised based on your success with Motor Minds, you guys have been very focused on what you do and what you don't do and how we make money. We make money on equipment rental. What we don't make money on is delivery. We don't make money on, having people come in and operate the equipment. And even to the extent that, like, hey, the customer probably wouldn't even, maybe not even think twice about paying a damage waiver every time. But you're saying, like, look, you're not operating it. We're not going to take charge of the damage waiver. You guys have been very disciplined around what you do and what you don't do. And I mean, I I guess my question is, like, what advice would you have for other rental companies? Because there's a lot of people who just love equipment and they don't necessarily have all that thinking around, like, what to focus on, not to focus on. How did you develop that uh, with the Econo Rent, and what advice would you give other rental companies who are wanting to be as disciplined and focused as you guys are?
So I developed it by one of my mentors. His name is Ray Fisher, and he's still a part of Motor Minds today.
Mm-hmm.
And is my longest standing shareholder, and we really just a lot of life lessons, a lot of business lessons. He's a former executive at Chrysler, and as an entrepreneur, we often get, I mean, we can do that, we can monetize that, we can do this, we can do
Mm-hmm.
that, and and, and he always advised me, be really good, be the best at what you're aiming to solve for, right? And I've
Mhm.
just brought those disciplines into every other business that we've started, and I'm religious with that with our staff. Is don't just sell a damage waiver to sell a damage waiver. Does the customer have their own insurance? Like, let's save the customer money wherever they can. Let's take out all the hidden fees. Let's not charge for things that aren't real fees that we don't have to pay for, right? So all these things that you see on a rental contract. I mean, when I first saw them, I'm like, man, rental business is really complex. I must have all these government fees to pay, everything else. They weren't real. So we just take out all the friction. The
Mhm.
price that you see is the price you pay, and
Mhm.
that's it. Now, do we do what other rental companies do, and obviously discount people like contractors or high volume renters? Of course, we have a loyalty program, and it takes care of that. It's volume based, but we're really trying to we're really trying to build transparency into a model
Mm.
that I
Mhm.
think has lacked transparency over time.
Totally. That was the thing that when 2020, 2021, we were starting Quipli and we were wanting to do online renting and put pricing online. There was a big, I don't want to do that. Right. And I think we've moved past that as an industry, by the way. I don't really hear that often. Almost everybody has now moved into the point of transparency. But what you're talking about, that you developed from your mentor and several decades of business experience, is sort of counterintuitive, where you're saying, we're going to focus, we're going to cut out the noise. Like, you could make money on delivery, you could make money
Yeah.
on the technicians. You could make money on blah 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 blah. But you are intentionally not doing those things to win the bigger prize, because the reality is, if you focus the whole niches to riches strategy and you do one thing extremely well, you're the best at that one thing, and you only do that one thing, you will have way more success. And I think that's sort of something that's not natural to people, right?
Right.
Because it feels weird to turn away business. You're probably turning away business, right? You probably have people who
100%.
want to do X, and I think that's been the secret sauce I've seen from the rental companies that do the best, is they're religious around what they do, and more importantly, what they don't do.
Yeah. I totally agree. And then I think, like, as I think to the future, right, and this is why, I love our partnership so much. I don't even know if you know, but like Court and I meet every couple of weeks, right? And it's really just here's what's keeping me up at night. And it's
Yeah.
more like me just picking his brain. And it's funny because, for a group of guys that don't come from the rental business either, and you guys, I present all these challenges at Court, and he says, we can do that now, right? And I'm always like, I had no idea, right? But it's like
Eh.
the future is really around, and we're seeing it more and more. We've gone from this, I'll say, non-transparent transaction into I'm now booking online. And
Mhm.
even again, 19 months ago, we had 0% of our customers booking online. We had customers coming in, and this is probably more native of our geo, but saying, "Hey, do you have a pricing sheet? And well, we have a website." No, 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 I don't use the web. No, I'm not going to go on a
Yeah,
computer.
yeah.
And
The internet. I don't
that's
know about the
evolving.
internet.
Well, right, like that's evolving
Yeah.
to more and more customers coming from metros, building cottages here, all that stuff. So that that kind of um, that more, I'll say, tech savvy customer. But I am actually pleasantly surprised by the percentage of our customers who are now just booking online, and
Hmm.
that's the model that I want to continue to build. Right, no doubt that I want as many customer interaction points as possible. I want the delivery to be seamless. I want the customer to feel. I want to have that consultative process. um, but for the percentage of customers who know exactly what they want, uh, it is the to me one of the future transitions that we have to make more aggressively in the industry because it's so cost effective, right?
Hmm. Cost effective, and your point on the customer experience, they want to, right?
Right.
I'm a millennial. I'm not even the youngest generation in the workplace anymore. Millennials got crap for a while with their avocado toast and going to Starbucks, but Gen Z, they don't want to talk to people, right? And
Right.
if United just came out with a lot of this is public information, but like our team was talking about it, the amount of digital growth and e-commerce growth, it was like 40% year over year, which has been 40% every other year, around number of payments being taken online, renting online. And I think, it's not even just the renting experience online, which is a big part, but it's also the customer portal, right? Being able to pay your bills, request extensions, call offs. And I think there's a lot more. And I think good news for us is, like, the Nationals, we like to pick on them a lot, and you compete with them, but they are investing a lot of money into the technology section. So like a lot of what works and doesn't work, we can also watch and kind of see what's happening. Right.
Yeah, and coming from our space, you and I joke about this is like we could almost read the tea leaves a bit because we went through this painful process in automotive a decade ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we saw the transition happen in automotive, and now I'm starting to see it happen in power sports, which is the next logical thing. And you know, we're a minimum a decade behind in rental right now. But to your point, there's a lot of investment being made, a lot of AI being integrated into the rental process that I think is critical for its evolution. And I think we're going to see a faster catch up than we originally probably predicted.
I totally agree. I think if the automotive transition took 10 years, this may happen in 3 to 5 years because I
Agree
think
fully.
it's happening fast. I've seen the acceleration. If people listen to me on the podcast, I've been more excited the last few episodes because I'm seeing what's happening, like across
Yeah,
the board. There's more investment happening. There's more private equity money coming into these rental companies, which I'm not saying is a
yeah,
necessarily good or bad thing, but like you're bringing more, maybe sophistication, more capital. From the technology perspective, there's a lot more demand. It used to be for a while for me, like telling people you need to rent online, and now people are telling me what the industry needs to do, right? And we're racing to build stuff because there's just I don't know, something flipped, and I would say it probably flipped in the last 12 months, where people have decided that the old way of doing things was not where we need to move in the next 5 years. So I'm very excited. I got a couple last questions here.
sure.
Where do you see the industry going in the next 5 years? Kind of, me and you have seen this story before in automotive, but the folks who haven't seen this play out before and the tech industry is going through a big technology shift, where do you see rental moving in the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, I think to your point is it's going to be an accelerated adoption primarily because of um, a generational pressure, right? Of people
Yeah.
that just don't, good or bad, just don't want to talk to people anymore. They don't want to talk to other
Yeah.
people anymore, and they just want to be
Yeah.
self-serve and online, and they want the Amazon effect, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be accelerated far more than we saw in an automotive, and I think candidly, and this is a bold prediction, Kyle, I think it's actually going to surpass it because
Mm,
buying a car online is still immensely complex. State to state regulations. I mean, like it is still an immensely complex process, which is why we've seen I'll say the digital retailing component advance dramatically, but still the sheer number of transactions, even when you apply the Carvana model and everything else, is still pales in comparison to the total transactions in the industry.
mm,
Whereas rentals are a less emotional transaction, right? And I think that's
mm,
when you think about that and I think about that for power sports is a less emotional transaction than buying a car. It's a cheaper transaction. So it's an easier transaction. This is easier even than that. I'm not
yeah.
committing to anything long term. It's
Yeah.
a short term commitment. So it's just like I really do think my bold prediction is we're going to surpass the industries that we've come from.
Mm,
With with everything that's coming down the pipe for AI from an AI perspective, and to your point, agnostic investors and industries coming in and seeing what rental has to offer. I just think we're not going to be we're not going to so much be the good old boys and girls club anymore. It's going to
yeah.
be
And
it's going to evolve quickly.
I totally agree. I think you look at all these forecasts and, when I started this 5 years ago, it was $60 billion, and now it's 83 billion in the US and Canada. And you keep
Yeah,
looking at the growth. I think that's still underestimated. I think it's going to grow faster than people think. It's going to go faster than GDP. I think it's an amazing business model. And you look at Europe and Asia, the rental penetration, 80%, 85%, where it's
yeah,
60% in the US and Canada. It's an amazing business model. People like to rent. It makes more sense economically. It makes more sense for the end users. And, I think it's amazing how fast the industry has gone with pretty outdated, bad technology. Right.
yeah. I
And I
fully agree.
think what's happening is from a software perspective, you can build software almost 5 times faster than even 10 years ago. Right. So I think everything is kind of moving in these tailwinds. And maybe there's some economic uncertainty, of course. But if you look at the next 5 years, there's a lot to be excited about in this space.
Fully agree. Fully agree.
Well, Jeff, it's been awesome having you on here. Final question I like to ask everyone: best career advice you've gotten in your career that's helped shape your success, or any good career advice you want to share for anyone listening today?
Yeah, probably two things. Surround yourself with opposites, right? So,
Mm,
again, probably in my businesses, that's been my most effective strategy for scaling growth is thinking of the Gino Fontana book that I always forget the name of, but I've read it 10 times where I should remember the name. But there's a strategy lead and there's an execution lead, there's an implementer. And in all my businesses, I've surrounded myself with great operational leads. I have zero desire to get into minutia of, scaling a business. I want to go build new strategies, implement new business models, and then have other people scale them. So that's number one, surround yourself with opposites and breed entrepreneurs. And that's the other one. And this
Mm,
is we both know the same individual here, and that's Ron Fry. And
mm,
that was always a term that he had coined really well, right? Is that if you can breed entrepreneurs in your business and business models and strategies, you really have people that are vested in the business. And if you can build
mm,
compensation models around those philosophies, you've just got a bunch of owner operators versus employees that couldn't care less, right? And not saying every
mhm.
employee couldn't care less. I just think that those have been
Yeah.
the two core secrets to what has really helped me build and scale businesses.
Surround yourself with opposites and entrepreneurs. I love that. I've experienced that in my career. And, our second company values act like owners. And while you act like owners, you get people who are owners of the company bought in
You
and
got it.
incentivized. And, a lot of your job and my job is really just getting out of the way, setting the vision, strategy,
Yeah.
getting the right people and getting out of the way. So, Jeff,
Yeah.
it's been great getting to know you over the last few years. It's great having you on today. A lot of great insights, the way you've been very strategic around your growth. You guys have had a great business even in just 19 months. So excited to follow along. Again, Jeff, thanks for taking the time today.
My pleasure, Kyle. It was great to see you and look forward to chatting with you again.